Business Inside, I'm An Jang-hyun. Let's welcome back our panelists. Professor Shin Sang-hyuk is with us once again. And Professor Lee Young-um is back as well. Thank you very much. Now, here's a look at this week's 60-second news update.
Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn has announced 4 major anti-corruption measures to revitalize the economy and gain social trust. Furthermore, the government will implement this new measure in public systems and business sectors as well. 5 major national banks are expected to expand its global network with the addition of 120 new branches. We can expect to see tough domestic competition as a result of the prolonged trend of low growth and low interest rates. There will also be restructuring of insolvent enterprises, establishment of internet-only banks, and electronic payment services. As companies face fierce competition in the domestic market, plans are being put forward to expand business overseas. The Chinese market crisis is creating turmoil in the international stock market. A drop in the yuan, instability of the financial market, increased bankruptcy rate, and a decline in the real estate market are among the concerning risk factors. The slowdown in China's economy is a major cause for concern in the international financial market.
The Chinese economy seems to be in trouble at the moment. Its stock market is quite volatile and growth is slowing down. What can we attribute this to?
Well, I think there are several reasons, but one of the major reasons is the rapid structural change in the economy. Well, Chinese government has, started its restructuring and rebalancing with earnest, with several very important transitions. Well, if I tell the transitions happening in China right now is from the external demand for growth to domestic demand. This is the first transition. And second one is the manufacturing industry to service industry, which means that the major engines of the Chinese economy has been changed from manufacturing industrial sector to service sector. And third transition is from investment and savings to consumption. This means that Chinese economy could be developed very fast by attracting foreign direct investment from foreign countries. As you know very well, China has very good and then cheap labor forces. This has been one of the major reasons for attraction of the foreign investment into China. But right now, the Chinese government want to keep the economic dynamism in their economy by expanding domestic consumption. So this is the third transition. And last one is they want to change the key industries from labor-intensive industry to skill-intensive industry. Well, this is the main reason. The recent lower growth in China has been the outcome of such a rapid restructuring in the economy.
If you look at some of the more direct or immediate causes, as a result of the structural change that the Chinese government is pursuing, the value of the yuan started to decline, stock prices started to fall, and together with that, what people call a misguided effort that was counterproductive to the market by the Chinese government, which was the circuit breaker system that they had instituted, actually caused the panic, because if you stop trading because prices are falling, and if from an investor point of view, if you weren't able to sell your stock right before it was closed, 15 minutes later, you want to sell, and so I think, accelerated the decline in stock prices.
So you would agree with some analysts who say that Chinese policymakers are partly to blame for not being consistent with their policy, or not communicating their policy enough with the investors, at least?
I think they would need to be more professional, I guess, in their economic policies.
But I think as Professor Lee pointed out, the government, right now are criticized in some sense by the external experts. I think this is the one aspect we have to pay attention to. I mean, there are some experts, who insist that this is temporary process, and then while the others are said that this is the really serious end of China's growth. Well, the basic logic, which they insist that this is or China lost the engine of their growth. That is that to keep the dynamism in the economy, they should expand the domestic consumption. To let the people buy more products in China, definitely they should improve the quality of the products. Well, to improve the quality of products, which means they have to win at the election, at the competition with the major producers around the world. And then the better quality products can be produced based on creativity. But considering Chinese legal system or government leadership, whatever, those circumstances is not appropriate for making better quality products based on creativity. So this is the basic argument which the experts criticize, empathize that China lost its engine for the growth. But the other side of the coin, which means that I think I stand on this side. Well, Chinese government has two big issues in right now. First one is the huge debts. The debt reached to 250% of the GDP in 2015, in the middle of 2015. Actually, the debt was about 180% in 2008, which means that the debt increased very dramatically. So I think this is one of the challenges facing the Chinese policymakers to stabilize Chinese economy. But the more serious problem is, in fact, the Chinese the economy has some difficulties in maintaining the appropriate Chinese the currency yuan's exchange rate. Well, over the 3 decades, China had maintained the 2-digit economic growth. But as I said before, they right now changing the economic structure. So they try to achieve the economic growth based on huge domestic consumption. Well, in the past, to have the competitive advantages in their exports, the appropriate Chinese yuan was very important. Well, for the economists, actually, we can easily understand this one. Let me add some explanation. When the devaluation of the currency of any country was made, on the short-term basis, the country's export increased dramatically. But the Chinese government right now expand the domestic fundamental by expanding domestic consumption, which means to have the appropriate exchange rate seems to be very, very important. It takes a long time, but anyway, I think by whether the Chinese government can maintain the appropriate Chinese yuan exchange rate against USA dollar will be very, very crucial to change the economic situations in China.
So whether it's a transition or an actual crisis, China will obviously want to get out of the situation. What needs to be done here? Professor Shin just mentioned maintaining a stable exchange rate for one.
Well, if you consider the fact that the 2-digit growth from about 2006 to 2014 in China was a result of their previous policies, which was development-oriented, investment-oriented, and investment based on an enormous amount of debt, as Professor Shin just mentioned. That policy cannot be sustained anymore, and the Chinese government is realizing that. But currently, percentage of consumer spending in the GDP is about 27%. Investment is 53%. Whereas during the same period of Chinese of growth of China, in the U.S., consumer spending was almost 80%, or over 80%, and investment was only about 13%. And so if you consider the huge difference in the economic structure, we can see that China still has a long way to go, but they are realizing that they need to focus their economy into a more consumer-oriented and a more service-oriented economy. And so they seem to be doing taking appropriate measures.
What about ways to ease the worries of international investors? Because every time the Chinese stock market rattles, the jitters are felt all over the world.
Well, I think the answer to the question is the maturity of the Chinese economy. That means that legal system and corruption or unethical business practices, those things are very behind, comparing with the advanced economy. So to attract more investment or to stabilize the stock market, definitely Chinese government should make every effort to improve these economic circumstances. Otherwise, they will face other challenges in keeping their dynamism in the economy. If I add more explanation actually about the yuan's exchange rate against China, well, considering the currency values in the major countries in the region, South Korea and Japan, their currency values have been depreciated, which means that subsequently Chinese producers will lose their competitive advantages in global market. And there are many prospects that Chinese economy will be slowed down. Considering these aspects, the economists said that Chinese yuan is overvalued. So definitely Chinese government should have to depreciate the yuan against USA dollar. But the question, as I said before, how much? This is the very difficult question to answer, but depending on the decision made by the Chinese government, definitely Chinese economy will be in a very different shape, I think.
But the fact that the Chinese government intervention was a factor is something that should be noted, because the Chinese government was going to allow the depreciation of the yuan to 6-some%. But as soon as the value of yuan started going down, the market started to butt in, and it was depreciated a lot faster and a lot more than the government had intended, and that was the reason for the crisis. So, so the Chinese government needs to, I guess, try to curb itself from trying to intervene in the market too much if it is going to move on to a more advanced economy.
Well, we know that Korea is heavily dependent on China when it comes to things economic, and we respond very quickly to China's ups and downs.
Yes.
So naturally, we are going to feel some of the shock waves. How should we prepare ourselves?
Well, at the moment, China is the largest trading partner for Korea, so Chinese market is very important. And then, as I already explained, Chinese economy is right now changing. So we have to we should change ourselves to meet for the new environment in China, which means that the service sector in Chinese economy will increase dramatically. So Korean government, Korean industry should put the first priorities on entering into the service industry in China. Secondly, Chinese government tried to develop the energy-saving industries and so-called green industries. Definitely, these will be the industries which we have to enter into. Fortunately, we have competitive advantages in these industries. What I mean is that depending on the changes in the market, Chinese market, we have to decide the appropriate Korean industries which can have create huge demands in Chinese market. I think on the short-term basis, this will be the best strategies which the South Korean industry should take.
We've discussed China's economic turmoil and its impact on Korea so far. Let us now turn our attention to a domestic issue. Korea's major opposition party has been split into two, the Minju Party of Korea and the People's Party. Is it a permanent split or is it a move for a future reshuffle? Let's hear what our panelists think. So, what do you think? Have the two sides gone their separate ways for good, or is it an opportunity for them to regrow and reorganize themselves?
Well, it is a very complicated question and requires a very complicated answer. First of all, with the separation of the People's Party, the politicians that are mostly based on the southwestern part, which was actually a firm backer of the opposition party, are the politicians that have decided to leave. And so it seems like a very even split, but actually it's not, because if you look at the number of politicians that have joined so far, about a little over 10 politicians have joined the new party, the People's Party, but the majority of the existing politicians are still with the Minju Party. And so, I mean, it is a very long history of division that I guess has surfaced.
Mm-hmm. Well, both sides have said there is no going back, and it seems the rift between what was previously two rival factions within the NPAD, the rift is too great to be mended anytime soon, doesn't it?
I think it will take a time, if it happened, to reunite it. I think according to the report, well, there are basic differences in the approaches between two leaders, and Chairman Moon and then new leader An. And so considering this aspect, definitely we will have the multi-opposition parties. And the next question in my mind is whether how will affect the Korean politics. I think well, there are good and bad sides like a coin, but on the short time, definitely, I cannot find what are the good contributions and bad contributions to the Korean politics from the split of the opposition party.
Especially with the general elections coming up next year.
Particularly, I think it will be very helpful for the ruling party, considering the past lessons we got when the opposition party was splitted. Well, the ruling party could get some so-called bonuses, special bonuses. I think that will be the case, this time as well, because there are some specific groups supporting for Chairman Moon. There are other specific groups supporting for An. Well, certainly, which means that among the supporters for the opposition party, there will be two groups. That means that in comparing in considering of the competition at the general election, definitely we can guess easily that the ruling party will gain more support. But one thing which I want to underline is that there are some analysis that among the supporters for the ruling party, some of them will join to the Mr. An's new party, because we can find something duplicated in the political platforms between the ruling party and Mr. An's new party. So I think the ruling party will gain some side effects, so-called, from the split of the opposition party on the short-term basis. But fundamental changes, I don't think that there will be some fundamental changes in the balance of the power between the ruling party and opposition party.
Well, factional conflict and a lack of leadership have been pointed out as reasons for the opposition party's split. Do you think An Cheol-soo's new People's Party will be any different?
Well, if we review the reasons for the launching of the new party that was stated by An, one was that he was going to try to get rid of this decade-old two-party system and try to go for this multi-party system, and that he would put people's livelihoods at the foremost of his all of his policies rather than ideological differences, and that he was going to try to to diminish the regional sort of factions. And so the stated goals of the People's Party seem to be very noble. Now, given that, if we look at the general political landscape, it seems to be that, as Professor Shin said, in terms of left-right, the Saenuri Party is in the far right. The Minju Party,
yes.
right? They just recently renamed their party, right? The Minju Party is on the kind of on the left, and An's party seems to be kind of in the middle.
Yes.
And so that is why he is talking about flexible ideologies, and that is why some of the people that were not firmly backing the Saenuri Party seem to be leaning towards An's party. But if you actually look at the composition of the supporters for the current An's party, it seems to be that most of the undecided, previously undecided people seem to be backing him. And people actually over 50 are supporting the An's party. And so that's kind of gives you a sort of a sense of the make. Now, if we go to the general elections that's coming up in April, inevitably the Saenuri Party is going to benefit from the sort of the split, because although there will be people who are backing An's party that were previously backing the Saenuri Party, it will not be that much.
Can I add something
Sure.
more? Yes. Well, in fact, the An Cheol-soo, Mr. An Cheol-soo formed his liberal bloc several days ago, and he promised to create the new politics by the people for the people. But personally, I do not know very well about his visions and his so-called objectives as a political party leader. So I think to get the more support from the people, I think Mr. An should make it clear what kind of visions he has and what kind of the political objectives he has. Certainly, they should be differentiated from the existing parties. Otherwise, I think this can be a phenomenon just happening on a short-term basis. So I think this will be very important.
Such criticism have come from both sides, actually. The spokesperson for the Saenuri Party recently said, my question to An is, how many of his ideas have actually taken shape over the past years? And so he still has to, yes, he has a lot of popular support, but he still hasn't really shown a lot of actual detailed policies. And so that's an area that he needs to work on.
So our panelists here both agree that An needs to prove himself politically to the people for his party to succeed.
Yes, in the immediate sort of measure of his success will actually be his ability to recruit not just the existing assembly members, but new faces. The Minju Party have recently recruited very seemingly fresh new faces. Among them, Pyo Chang-won, who is a criminal who was a criminal investigator, and the Minju Party seems to be moving on and trying to recruit new, younger faces. But with regard to An, the fact that most of the members of Congress that have joined his party are from the southwestern region, that makes us question whether how serious he is in saying that he wants to get rid of this regional faction, because I mean, most of the members, the 7 members that were with him during the launch of his party, and the other members that have left the party since then, are mostly from the southwestern region as well.
Another interesting point to note is that we know that there are 3 potential presidential candidates from the opposition. We mentioned Moon Jae-in and An Chol-soo, and there's also Seoul City Mayor Park Won-soon. They're all showing very different viewpoints about how the opposition should move on in the future. How will these viewpoints play out in next year's general elections and the 2017 presidential election, for that matter?
Well, it is a very difficult question to answer, but let's think about their stance. I mean, the stance is taken by 3 potential the presidential candidates, if I dare to say. Chairman Moon, actually, he is facing serious challenges, and then he emphasized that we have to be united. Otherwise, we'll be a loser at the general election and at the presidential election as well. I think he does not personally he does not have many things to do at the moment because he does not have his own political clings, and then he failed to have the differentiated political goals from other opposition parties. So at the moment, I think he just emphasized that we should be united. We will do our best, and then we will wait to let them return to our political party. But personally, I think it will not happen in the near future.
Well, we're already seeing
Yes.
many of the members
right.
move on.
But traditionally, the opposition it wasn't just the NPAD. There is the Justice Party, which used to be the 3rd party, and which has now become the 4th party. But An's party is now saying that that is no longer acceptable. That there needs to be this multi-party landscape in the Korean politics. So that's why with Park Won-soon, Park Won-soon is saying that, still saying that the forces need to unite and cooperate. An is saying that he will not. Moon would like to cooperate, so we'll have to see. But I think the critical point will be the general election in April, because as a result of the election, if both An's party and Moon's party, the Minju party, not Moon's party, but the Minju party and the People's Party, fail or lose a lot of the seats, then it will be a huge minus for both of them, and they will lose their influence for sure.
Well, whatever the outcome, we can only hope it will be a step toward a more mature democracy as well as regional and social integration. In response to North Korea's recent nuclear test, the South Korean government has resumed loudspeaker broadcasts across the border. Let's discuss the significance of the move and its potential effects. Well, it's quite interesting that South Korea's first move in response to North Korea's nuclear test is not a military one, but rather the resumption of these propaganda broadcasts, which North Korea is quite sensitive about. How should we interpret this move?
Well, I think the loudspeaker broadcast is a psychological plot to break the trust of the North Korean military and the people. I think through this the countermeasure, South Korean government got some quite effectiveness in changing the situations facing North and South Korea. I think this is, in this context, very important. But I think we have to think about this question as well. Besides this measure, what kind of countermeasures South Korean government can take? But personally, I think we don't have many things to do. So at the moment, I think this is the one of the best countermeasures taken by the Korean government. And so to maximize the effectiveness of this, the countermeasure, definitely we have to do our best to select contents of the broadcast. Well, according to the report, well, the South Korean government has played even some pop songs, popular songs, and then even give some news forecast. Of course, from time to time, South Korean, the authority criticized the North Korean leadership and the North Korean regime itself. And then also they let the North Korean explain the situations, economic and political situations facing the North Korea in the global community. I think those kind of things can be a direct threats to the North Korean regime itself. So that's the reason why the North Korean government has been very sensitive to this, the loudspeaker, the broadcast. In the night, actually, this can reach to 24 kilometers from the EMG. So I think it's quite stressful for the North Korean regime, I think.
So you would agree it's an effective psychological campaign against the North?
I would just say that it would constitute psychological warfare even. And so we can see that South Korea has decided to take the hard stance, not the soft stance that some people are arguing for. For example, resuming talks with North Korea would be another measure, but under this military action, I think in the Conservative Party is in line with its policies and taking a very hard line against the North Korean actions.
When we look at the content of these loudspeaker broadcasts, it seems to show what kind of a society South Korea is, that it is a very prosperous one where people live to the age of 100.
Right, right. And that is why the centennial song that was recently very popular in Korea is one of the songs that are being broadcast.
Well, in response, North Korea began its own loudspeaker broadcast, but apparently the speakers have very low wattage and can barely be heard.
Well, as they did, they praised their leader, Kim Jong-un, and then also they did the so-called political propaganda about their regime and their governing system, leadership. At the same time, they criticized the South Korean government, and so they slander the President Park Geun-hye herself. I think the contents they sent to her through the broadcast are not very different from the previous ones. So I think the question we have to think about is that how much it can affect the South Korea and South Korean soldiers. Definitely considering the effectiveness, well, the South Korea has been very successful in getting some effectiveness through loudspeaker, the broadcast.
Well, the international community has come out in unison to condemn North Korea's latest nuclear test. What have been some of the responses we've seen from the international press?
Well, the incident was in the major news of most of the global news outlets, and they are very concerned of the potential for the magnitude of the hydrogen bomb. If it, they are actually doubting, but if it is, and if they're on their way to developing, and if this is one of the steps, then they are rightfully very concerned. And so they are going to the UN to come up with resolutions to denounce the acts of North Korea. And they're trying to get China to try to get China to persuade North Korea, because currently China is the country that has the most influence on North Korea. And so they're trying to thwart the actions of the North Koreans through China.
Well, in fact, the international press has been quite quick to report about the resumption of loudspeaker broadcasts.
Yes, they did actually. after the report, about the nuclear test through the North Korean mass media, immediately, as Professor Lee pointed out, the mass media around the world reported it to the people, and then also they have with the one voice they said that North Korea will be more isolated from the international community. And on the top of that, they reported the UN Security Council's measures, which will impose the sanctions against North Korea. And particularly, they reported about the responses from China, because China has been strong political allies of North Korea. At the same time, they have criticized the North Korean nuclear project. So they empathize North Korea should give up its nuclear test. So the response of the Chinese government drew a lot of attention from the global community. But at the initial response from them was quite strong. But as time goes on, their responses has been changed. So we have to wait and see. But definitely, global community with a one voice criticized the North Korea's nuclear test.
For a while, there seemed to be a mood of reconciliation forming in Northeast Asia with the South Korea-Japan deal on wartime sex slaves and a sign of a thaw in North Korea-China relations recently, but then things are shaking up again after this latest nuke test. How do you think the latest series of events will affect Northeast Asian relations?
Well, one of the speculations is that North Korea, the reason for North Korea conducting these tests is not to sort of instigate sort of violence or a threat or become an actual threat to South Korea, but to show to the world that they have this power. And some are even saying that North Korea is aiming to resume peace talks, actually, with the U.S. And in order to resume the peace talks, they have to show to the world that they are very powerful. And so they say that with the new leader, or relatively new leader, trying to begin his era of reign, this is one of the ways that he was trying to use to get the world to listen. But judging by the response of the U.S. and other countries, it doesn't seem to have succeeded. But it is certain. It is certain that the political or geopolitical sort of landscape of this region will change, because Korea especially is trying to maintain a fine balance between China and the U.S. And so with China a bit more closer to North Korea, it will inevitably make South Korea lean more towards the U.S. because, security is of the highest importance. Really.
Well, actually, some analysts are pointing out that this is an opportunity for Korea to consolidate its alliances with not just the U.S. but Japan as well.
I think, yes, there will be some so-called impact on existing relationship in the region. But we have to the political relationship from the economic relations, which means that the economically, in economic relations, there have been the progress, particularly in the relations between Korea and China. But in terms of political relations, definitely there has been something in between the two countries. But because of the North Korea's nuclear test, I think this will be one of the opportunities for strengthen the political relations with the countries in the region, particularly with China, I think.
Well, North Korea's nuclear test is an intolerable provocation that poses a grave threat to national as well as regional security. Let's hope for some stern measures from the international community to prevent future provocations. Well, thank you, professors, very much for sharing your insights with us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
That is all for this week's edition of News Inside. Thanks for watching. We will see you again next week.